Welcome to It's Just Middle School with Sarah and
Kelly. If you're joining us for the first time today, we are two fabulous veteran middle school teachers with middle schoolers of our own that love talking about middle school.
Our passion is to support parents and educators in understanding the middle school years through research, experience, and casual conversation.
If you're returning to our show, welcome back. Let's jump into this episode's buzzword, executive functioning.
What is executive functioning?
Why do middle schoolers seem to struggle with these skills?
And how can we help?
Mom, where's my homework?
Scenario 1. Bobby can't find his homework. He's going through his book bag, binder, locker, all of which you notice are a complete unorganized disaster. Parents, you might be thinking, why doesn't your teacher tell you where to put your things or help you get organized? Aren't they telling you where to even put all these papers? I'm sure they're not supposed to just be in your front pocket. And teachers, have you thought, I've told Bobby 1,000,000 times where to put his homework. It goes in the homework section. Why can't his parents help him with this? I mean, I have 25 plus students, and dealing with organization and trying to teach these kids multiplication tables, I just need more time.
Scenario 2. You're running out of the house with 15 minutes left to get to school. There's a project due and your son or daughter is panicking, something about not being able to find the most crucial piece to the project. The night before, you had spent a good 3 hours working on this project. As a parent, you go to help try to find that crucial piece. You cannot find it. You quickly send an email to give the teacher a heads up on the missing component to the project and ask what can be done. Parents, you might be thinking, oh my goodness, this teacher is probably thinking we're totally unorganized as a family, that my child has spent 2 minutes instead of the several hours that you did spend time on this. You're worried about how that might reflect on your parenting style. Teachers, in receiving that email, you might be thinking, oh my goodness, we worked on it, we set deadlines for it, we chunked the assignment. Why is this student not as prepared as they can be in completing the project?
Do either of these sound familiar? If so, you're not alone. We hear this from parents and colleagues all the time. Why? Because it's normal. But what's the answer? Executive functioning.
And now for a wee bit of research.
So Kelly, according to the research, what are the executive functioning skills and how do they work?
Well, we're going to be looking at the Behavior Rating Inventory of Executive Functioning, second edition, which is also known as the Brief 2. And according to that, there are 9 executive functioning skills that are developing during really the course of your lifetime. Self-monitoring, inhibition, shifting, which is like a cognitive flexibility or how flexible you are with your thinking, emotional control, initiation, working memory, planning, task monitoring, and organization. And all of these work together to help us get through our day. And not all adults are even great at these skills, yet we are really trying to promote them. And sometimes we expect our middle schoolers to be even better than they are at these. So personally, I am pretty good at self-monitoring and taking initiative on things. But organization, not so much. My desk at school, my Google Drive, my inbox, they're a mess. My husband actually thinks it's hysterical that I have 20,000 unopened emails in my personal account. It drives him crazy. But luckily, my working memory is still pretty good because I know where all of those are and I can search my email very well when I need something. But the chaos just works kind of for me. Sarah, what about you?
Well, Kelly, I think organization in reverse, I'm really good at organization. I can chunk things and label things and I have no problem deleting emails because that's less emails in my inbox. My working memory is pretty good. I can plan really well, but I got to tell you, my emotional control is probably not the best that it can be. I mean, I cry at puppy commercials. Like, it's really bad. Like,
it's a puppy commercial. How do you not? Like the Super Bowl commercials?
Well, you know, the Sarah McLachlan, like really old school, like adopt these pets, and they zoom in on.
Well, and they play that music, so you can't help
it.
You're
so
just in tears.
I am emotionally in tune to the set, to music, to words, to images. So I will tear up at the most sad medium possible. And then my initiation, I need. I'm a bit of a procrastinator. I'm not gonna lie. I need something to get it to start the engines going, to start the mind going. I need to be able to process something a little bit slower than.
Do you need the deadline to be set?
I need the deadline. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
And I think that one of the things our middle schoolers struggle with is realizing how far away that deadline or how close that deadline might get, along with all of these other things they're juggling. Like I said, all of these skills are developed at certain times, but we're really going to be focusing on the ones that are for like age 10, 11, 12, 13, because like we said, that's kind of the middle school age that we are focusing on in this.
Yeah, and I think in middle school, why executive functioning kind of comes to the forefront is that in elementary school, these executive functioning skills are kind of done already for students. Teachers are building executive functioning skills, but they are doing all the groundwork. And then middle school, it breaks up to 7 different classes, each with a different teacher with a different teaching style and a different structure. And they kind of have to navigate these executive functioning skills on their own for the first time, but they're not really on their own. That's the sort of misnomer, I think, in middle school skills or middle school studying. It's not, we say it's really on their own, but we're always there to help as teachers, and we're of thinking about those building executive functioning skills in the classroom without calling it executive functioning skills.
Right. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I know in a lot of the group projects,
yeah,
we do, teachers are chunk it. We have things on the board that remind them of the assignment and what to do. And we're constantly saying, put things in your planners. Have a planner. Use it.
Well, yeah, and what I love about if you say the word group project, you always end up getting this like, sigh, because there's the word in collaboration is labor. And I don't think people students realize how hard it is to collaborate, because when you're in a group project, it is really putting your executive functioning skills to the test.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's planning, engaging, conversing, emotionally controlling a conversation or plan that might go awry, and being flexible because you have 4 people doing it.
Right.
I think...
And you also have peers that are going to call you out on that stuff. Like Susie's totally going to drop that you're not doing any of your work. And who likes to be called out on that, right? So then there's a whole other tension of the middle school.
Well, the social dynamics of middle school.
Right, the social dynamics of middle school that get thrown in there.
Yeah.
But the 2 things I've realized in the years of teaching and the research that we really dove into was that we all need to work together to help teach, model, and practice these skills, because our students are not masters at these at all. And like we said, neither are we in some of these areas. So we all need to keep learning and have a growth mindset on these. And the second, and this might be a little countercultural, but we need to spend more time in class on focusing on this stuff instead, or these are equally just as important as developing content. I feel like from just an administration perspective, teachers are always like, you got to be on this page and this lesson and make sure you're getting this skill covered. And a lot of times teachers don't feel like they have the time they need to put into the executive functioning. And we need to remember that it is really part of middle school to be helping these kids learn these skills and embedding them into the things we're doing, not just here's the skill, here's your lesson, here's the skill, here's your lesson, but how can we continue to make sure the kids are knowing that we're teaching them these skills without a test on these skills.
Right. Yeah. Putting them into practice, I think, is really the key, and supporting each other in terms of parents and teachers and administrators in giving that time and putting value into executive functioning skills. The other thing is that I was just thinking about is that when middle schoolers, or when students go into middle school and they come into these various classes that have various ways of structuring and organizing and various ways to plan, in some cases that might be overwhelming to the student. But on the flip side of that, they're learning different strategies in each of those classes. And some of those strategies might be more helpful than others, depending on what works. So a lot of middle school is sort of also navigating what strategies in place work best for that either learning style, for that student's scheduling, for that student's individual quirks. It's really, in that chaos, there's also of that fragmented sort of schedule that middle schoolers go through. There's also the opportunity to try different things out to apply executive functioning.
That's one reason why I love middle school, is because you get a new start every 60 minutes.
Yes.
And it might cause some kids some anxiety and some I gotta deal with this teacher style and that teacher style. But there is that embedded growth in that, I think, of the learning the different ways and figuring out, ooh, I like that this teacher does it that way, but I wouldn't want to use it the way that teacher does it.
Yeah. So I think also, and that's a good point, because I think with the adjustment, it's just middle school. Woo! The adjustment to all these classes give an opportunity to discover what works with each child, with each individual child. And that conversation between teacher and parent and student needs to be open enough and flexible enough to adopt new practices. So that communication line has to be there. And then also, part of the strategies for parents is to find those connections too, because the teacher might only see this student in this classroom and might talk to other teachers to see what other strategies are in place for these to develop these executive functioning skills. But the parent will see it a lot faster than the teacher, and then to keep the communication going and seeing what works. And that can have, what's the word for it? It's when the stones go into the water, it creates the ripple effect. Spreading that communication to other teachers and really supporting that child develop those executive functioning skills in the way that works for them.
Absolutely. I've noticed in just the past few years, I know with in the teacher world, sometimes we say we group things as pre-COVID and post-COVID, and there's this, I know post-COVID, I have seen, or I feel like students are struggling more and more with these executive functioning skills and being able to put them in place, and I don't know, kind of catching on as quickly as once upon a time they did. Do you see that? Do you think there's a reason for that?
Yeah, I think during COVID, you put a spotlight on the home environment and on the classroom environment, and there was a lot of communication that was going between the two. But I also think there was a big load on parents to help and support the child at home in navigating digitally and submitting assignments and understanding assignments. There was a lot, I think, that was thrown in on parents unexpectedly.
Absolutely.
And I think that also, what I've seen is that that kind of put a lot of responsibility on parents that just never returned to the students. Before, it was on the students, but then it became on the parents, and then it kind of became a habit. And and parents were used to going on Google Classroom.
Right.
Used to going on.
Well, because as a
documents.
parent, you might know sometimes it's just easier to
It's just
do.
easier.
It's
Yeah.
just easier to do. And when you only have so much time in the day, sometimes it's just, let me tie your shoe. Let me
Right.
tie your
And you
shoe.
have
Let
other
me just
things
tie your
done.
shoe.
You have your job.
You know,
Like you're
I got to get back to my Zoom call. Just let me tie your shoe so you can go outside.
Yes, it's just a lot easier. But I think then you had to wean that back and put a little bit more ownership back onto the student. And I don't know if that is, if we're catching up to that in the most recent years. But then you also have Anxious Generations by Jonathan Haidt. It just came out. And that centers all the shift based on the phone use.
And Kelly, I wanted to bring up Jonathan Haidt's new book called Anxious Generation. And he talks about the rewiring of the brain due to iPhones. And he calls the alpha generation the phone-based generation. He says, this is on page 129, the brain develops throughout childhood with an acceleration of change during puberty. One of the main skills that adolescents are expected to develop as they advance through middle school and high school is executive function, which refers to the child's growing ability to make plans and then do the things necessary to execute those plans. Executive function skills are slow to develop because they are based in large part in the frontal cortex, which is the last part of the brain to rewire during puberty. Skills essential for executive function include self-control, focus, and the ability to resist off-ramps. A phone-based childhood is likely to interfere with the development of executive function.
Haidt says in his book that they're still doing research on it, but there is an expected correlation that the increase in screen time is actually delaying our frontal cortex from developing, which is the main source of where executive functioning occurs. That's
Yes.
that's where we learn it, is when our frontal cortex develops, then our executive functioning skills increase. And the majority of that occurs during these adolescent years, is when your frontal cortex is developing. And the phones are playing into a delayed sense in that, which is what he states is why we're seeing a delayed expectation of these things developing.
Right. So that inhibition piece, the working memory, all of this, if you look back at those 9 skills, you can see how with experience that those executive functioning skills would be impacted by the use of phones. I'm seeing it as an English teacher where reading, just the capacity to read for long periods of time is dwindling. You can see that students they cannot dive holistically. There are exceptions. Not everybody is in this, but holistically, I'm seeing more students not being able to sustain thinking. So that cognitive piece, that cognitive development.
Absolutely.
So how, I wonder, as a teacher, I keep thinking about how if students can't dive holistically, or spend some time cognitively embracing independent thought, how are we expecting them to make a plan, foresee what is to come with deadlines, how to organize oneself in writing their thoughts together? You can see that it's been a growing concern, at least in the past 5 years or so.
I agree.
Yeah.
I see the self-monitoring really being more of a struggle, especially when they are working on something that's tech.
Yeah.
Like if they're working on a project that uses technology, or if they're working on an activity, we use IXL a lot for skill practice.
Yeah.
And in those, I feel like it's if I'm not constantly monitoring, they're popping on a game, just because it's there.
Yeah.
Like it's always there in the background. Like when I'm on this computer, I should be playing a game.
Yeah.
And there's that instant gratification piece that goes along with a lot of those games.
Yes.
So I think it's really hard, that focus piece for kids, because, math problems are not instant gratification. You got to work at them sometimes.
Right.
Whereas that game that I could hop on real quick without my teacher knowing and hop back, I feel like there's that.
Well, I think we're also sacrificing, because of what's around them, I think we're sacrificing focus for engagement, for entertainment. And I think there's a different, and so there's a need to sort of handhold them through executive functioning skills and planning and organizing and what those might look like, because they haven't had enough time with those skills, because we're always looking to engage with entertainment and not focus.
Yes. I think that's very true. Luckily, there is ways we can help.
Yes.
This is not like
We're not
horrible doomsday. We can fix this. And again, that's one reason that's great about middle school, is because this is the point in their world where we do still have a lot of emphasis in their world. Parents, teachers, like most of the time they still like us.
Yes.
Even though
we model. We are the modelers of function.
Even though they pretend they don't want to listen to us, they are. So luckily, we've kind of helped come up with a plan for you and us to kind of help us bring our kids back.
Let's go! Now, how can we as teachers and parents help?
Well, we kind of came up with this plan to think about it like constructing a road. Teachers, we kind of act as the foundation of the road. We're the soil that's applied, the getting things leveled out. We are the arrows pointing the way in case of a detour, and we fill potholes when they come up along the way. And in our classrooms, it's really going to be helpful for us to try and create expectations and as many opportunities as we can to allow them to practice these executive functioning skills in our lessons every day. Giving them time to navigate their path while we are the guardrails that protect them from complete failure. We want them to be successful. And a lot of modeling, I think, is really involved in this 100%. Process as well.
Yes. We need to help direct also the flow of this. And this is where I think parents can help, because they see the whole picture. Parents, we came up with a really cool way to continue this metaphor of journeys and roads. We came up with this acronym PAVE, to pave the way. So parents, you are making it super smooth for your child to navigate and strengthen these skills.
So what's the P?
Okay, so we have proactive connections.
A.
Ask questions.
V.
Valuing time.
And E.
Evaluate progress.
So there's the PAVE. And each one has kind of some specific things involved. So proactive connections, that's going to be making sure we are setting them up for success in the first place, creating good study spaces, making routines, and really having a positive line of communication with the school and your teachers.
Well, this is also family too. So like connecting, when we're talking about study spaces, it's not in the room of the student, because students can navigate elsewhere. That they might go and go onto social media.
You mean they might pop on YouTube while they're doing their homework? No.
And they also need to feel, I think, that sense of help and support, and you don't get that in that individual space. So I am recommending like going to the kitchen table or going studying in the family room while mom or dad are making dinner, just so that there's a go-to source for help.
Yes, being accessible while your student's doing work or a project or something is just kind of helpful, that they know you're there, even if they don't ask you.
Yeah. But do something else so that
you're not hovering.
You're not hovering, like cooking dinner or doing, something for work on the side. I think that's really important to be accessible, but not hovering or doing the work for them or making your child feel like you don't trust them, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's also not the plan. The plan is to proactively connect.
And this gets them out of their own head, because middle schoolers are notorious for just kind of being egocentric.
Yes.
So it also allows them to realize that they play a bigger picture in this. They are part of a bigger picture. It's not just about them.
It's not just about them. So that P for proactive connections is not about them learning how to communicate, or as a parent learning, being a model of communication. It's building those connections of accessibility,
which kind of leads into part 2.
Yeah,
asking questions and engaging your child to be able to take control of their own learning. This is not necessarily about you and them having great conversation. It's accountability for their own learning. I know I love when I get an email from a parent or guardian that just says, so-and-so is supposed to be asking you about this homework assignment they missed, or they're supposed to be asking you about this test coming up. Can you let me know if they do? Or just some way so that I know that you guys have had this conversation, and that you're giving them the opportunity to take this learning into their own hand. But now I also am aware of it.
Yeah.
And I can be like, oh, I need to make sure we have this conversation in class with this student. And it gets us all on the same page. I feel like it makes such a bigger difference rather than a parent emailing and saying, can you give so-and-so their homework that they missed? Or we can't find this assignment. Can you make sure they get a copy?
Yeah.
It's giving a much more collaborative approach, I feel like, than this. We're including the student in this learning process this way.
Yeah, so asking questions for the sake of accountability. B, for valuing time. Maybe sit down on Sundays and say, okay, here's the plan. Here's what we have going on. And then putting that information, that family information, into their planner as well. So just not just having the planner being for homework or academic time, but also using it to identify where those homework breaks are going to be, and to manage their time better, applying their family.
And another piece of that is making them accountable for part of their after-school schedules also.
Yeah.
Having them have a sense of what is going on in their world, not just school-wise, because this can help them plan better when they have long-term projects. If they know they have 3 ball games that week, or they know at 10 o'clock in the morning you're going to be pulling them out of class for a doctor's appointment. Yes. That can give them time to be like, hey, Miss So-and-so, I'm not going to be here for class. Yeah. What am I going to miss?
And, we talked about using a planner and having accountability with it.
I was cleaning my middle schooler's room this week, and I happened to come across this planner from this year. And we got through August. And there's a few things in there. A few things in there. There was a quiz for social studies, and there was a language arts paper and a long-term calendar. Yeah. And then it was blank. The rest of the year, it was blank. Which helps me know as a parent that I need to be a little more helpful about this value of time and helping him.
Yeah, and then to teachers too, I think this is also a testament to how much we need to be very mindful of how much we give for homework, so that we can allow times like this with a family to occur. Not to say that don't do any homework, because reading is really, really important as an English teacher. And
you have to practice math.
In like 20 minutes, and you got to practice math. But not to overload, and to be mindful of that, so you can have these opportunities.
And if some of these aren't working for you and you realize that there's a different strategy it needs, that's where E comes into practice.
Yes, evaluate progress.
this can come in a few different forms.
Yes.
Right? This is evaluating what's working at home as a family unit.
Yeah.
And evaluating what's going on in the classroom. We really recommend checking their online gradebook because most school districts have one at this point.
Yes. But with parameters.
With parameters, one being every couple weeks. Don't go on every day.
Don't drive you crazy.
Don't go on right after a big test.
The students will do that.
Right.
I mean,
we get.
will.
Do you get that? Like, is it in the gradebook yet? Can I look?
Yes.
Is it in the gradebook? Did you put it in? And we're like, you took it 5 minutes ago.
There's no physical way.
Like it is not there yet. Like you haven't even left the room for me to grade this.
Which is a lesson in itself. So
patience is a virtue.
Patience, that impulse, that emotional control as an executive functioning, that is valuable in itself, and that waiting for that grade to occur instead of it occurring immediately. But also with parenting, I would say every 2 weeks, just for sanity's sake, because grades can fluctuate within a certain period of time. But 2 weeks is a solid understanding of, okay, this is where my child is understanding at this moment. And you also give your child a sense, some time to react to those, because they're going to check every day. They are. But it'll give them some time to recover and put plans in place, and then, or not. And then the next 2 weeks, that would be a goal to establish as a family. Right.
And they might find more out about the test in the next couple days when we pass them back and we have time to discuss it in class. They might be able to give you more feedback about a class average or an overall perspective when they get.
Yes, rather than this isolated incident of this one moment in time, you are looking at a period of time with many moments in them. So that's many conversations, many ways that lead to a larger one. But then I would also say evaluating progress is establishing a rapport and conversation within the family unit too, and learning how to converse and learning how to talk about tough things and how to talk about and celebrate successes. I know with our family we use the thorn and rose strategy. What is your thorn? What is your rose? With every dinner table conversation. And what it establishes is it kind of sets the foundation for hard conversations to come later. So it's an open conversation at the dinner table. So when my son fails or aces a test, we've already built that support and understanding the highs and lows of the day, and knowing that you can recover from any low, and any high can become a low, and any low can become a high. So this idea of what is the thorn and rose kind of navigates that open communication.
And if you weren't sure, the thorn is the negative and the rose is the positive. In case you're unfamiliar with that, there's lots of those little acronyms out there. Like what was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? You know, what is something you can improve on? Those types of things. One of the things we like to use is how are you kind today?
Yes, that's a great one.
So just kind of having something in place, because if you ask the question, and if this is not your first rodeo in middle school, you probably notice if you just ask the question, how was your day? You're going to get fine. What did you learn today? Nothing. Because that's a very normal response. So don't feel like they're just isolating you. That's just what they're going to say.
But to ask open-ended questions, like, how were you kind today? Or what was your thorn today? Why was it your thorn? What was your rose? What was your greatest moment? And why? Then that opens up conversation a bit more than the fine and the good.
Absolutely. So these are just our suggestions on ways that can help
pave the way,
and really open up conversation between your student, your teachers,
your child,
as parents.
Yeah.
Exit ticket time. Exit ticket time. This is where we give you the top 3 takeaways from our episode. Number 1, it's just middle school. Developing executive functioning skills is a normal part of middle school.
Number 2, It's just middle school. Their frontal cortex is still developing, and research is just now correlating how social media and phone usage are delaying these skills.
And number 3, it's just middle school. We can work together to pave the way to success. B, proactively connect. A, ask questions for accountability. V, value time. And E, evaluate progress. Thank you so much for listening today.
This has been
It's Just Middle School
with Sarah
and Kelly,
As
always, hoping to bring meaning to the middle.
Don't be such an op.
This is for real.